If horror movies have taught us anything, it's that things that rise from the dead are usually brain-hungry zombies. But not everything that's been resurrected is as it seems. These are the rare cases in which creatures that come back from the dead are actually welcomed with fanfare and open arms. These are the species that came back from apparent extinction. Hi, I'm Danielle Dufault, and joining me today to talk about the species that seemingly came back from extinction is our new co-host, Taylor Schuldeis.
Hi, I'm Taylor Schuldeis, and you're watching Animalogic. Lazarus taxon are defined as species that are thought to be extinct, but then pop up either in fossil records much later or in real life, to our great surprise.
The name Lazarus species comes from a Bible story where Jesus is raising Lazarus of Bethany from the dead 4 days after his entombment. You get the connection. Usually, Lazarus species disappear and reappear in areas that are little seen by researchers. Remote islands, up in the mountains, or deep down in the oceans. Many times, these species have been extinct according to science, despite locals being well aware of their continued existence the whole time.
Let's splash right in with the most famous of all the Lazarus species, the coelacanth. Discovering a fish believed to be dead for around 66 million years in a fishing net was certainly not on anyone's bingo card in 1938. It would turn out to be one of the coolest scientific discoveries of the 20th century. And people at the time were ripe for sensation, as it had only recently been disproved that another hopeful Lazarus species was swimming around in Loch Ness. Speculation at the time was that the Loch Ness monster was in fact a plesiosaur, an ancient marine reptile like Elasmosaurus that had somehow survived.
But the disappointment of Nessie was all but forgotten with the discovery of the coelacanth, at least according to news reports at the time. The story of its discovery begins in South Africa when a trawler dredged up something he admitted he'd never seen in his 30 years of fishing. He called up Marjorie Courtney Latimer, the curator of the local natural history museum, who came down to his boat, the Nareen, to investigate. The fish was truly unlike anything she'd ever seen either. It was the weight of an average-sized 13-year-old. And about as long. Shiny blue with flashy, robust scales and dark blue eyes an ichthyologist could get lost in. And it had little limbs at the base of its fins. Until that point, we only knew coelacanths from the fossil record. And even then, they were kind of a big deal. That's because they are lobe-finned fishes, which means their fins are heftier than other fish, supported by muscle and bone. When they swim, they move their fins in an alternating pattern, almost like a horse trotting. Fish like the lungfish can even walk on land on their lobe fins.
That's important because tetrapods, meaning almost any four-limbed vertebrates, including humans and lions and crocodiles, evolved from another lineage of lobe-finned fish called Elpistostigalians, which included species like the tiktaalik. Lobe-finned fish to land-lubbing animals was one of the most important transformations in vertebrate history. So, finding a real live coelacanth with its little legs was a huge sensation.
Courtney Latimer immediately called J.L.B. Smith, a professor at nearby Rhodes University. By the time he got the telegraph and arrived 2 months later, they'd already taxidermied it and thrown away all the rotten insides.
Despite the disappointment of not seeing its guts, this is what JLB had to say when he laid eyes on that stuffed fish for the first time.
Although I had come prepared, that first sight hit me like a white-hot blast and made me feel shaky and queer. My body tingled as I stood stricken to stone. Yes, there was not a shadow of a doubt. Scale by scale, bone by bone, fin by fin. It was a true coelacanth.
JLB even named it after Marjorie, calling the fish Latimeria columnae, and the coelacanth was almost immediately dubbed a living fossil.
It would be another almost 15 years until the second specimen was pulled to the surface, this time 2,000 kilometers away from the Comoro Islands. Here, the locals call them gombesa, and actually pull up a few a year. Coelacanths hang out in underwater caves during the day and come out at night to hunt small fish, squid, octopus, and cuttlefish in the twilight zone of the ocean, at around 200 to 700 meters depth, which is part of the reason why they are so hard to capture and study. Having studied them, we've learned that they actually have live births, unlike a lot of their fish brethren. These individuals are not only amazing biological discoveries from a scientific point of view, but also incredibly important individuals, possibly the most important members of their species to ever live, because they're tasked with rebuilding their population. What would you do if you were in that position? It seems overwhelming, but thankfully, we have the book that teaches us how to rebuild human civilization. The knowledge of the book is useful for everyone. Its blend of arts, science, history, and design mean that everyone can learn so much from it. And it will spark curiosity about subjects you didn't even know you loved. It's an amazing read, and it's also stunning. I mean, just look at this. The art is amazing, and it's printed on really nice paper. I really like the chapter about pigeon mail, which gives you practical advice on how to train pigeons to text your friends without having to use the internet. I love that it's wearing goggles. And check out this chapter on bees that teaches you how to keep your insect friends happy and safe. It really makes me want to build an apiary. And if that isn't enough, the book has secret quests that take you to a secret website, and a more advanced puzzle only 7 people have ever solved. If you manage to solve it, you'll be made an honorary member of the Order of the Seekers. It's a rabbit hole of cool stuff. There's been so much buzz about this book that it raised over $2 million on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. You can get it now by scanning the QR code or clicking the link in the description, and use promo code Animalogic to get 10% off. Get yourself this big beauty of a book. And when you get it, let me know what's the coolest thing you learned reading the book. And now, back to the amazing animals that bamboozled extinction itself. While the coelacanth might be the most famous of the Lazarus species, there are plenty of other species that have risen from the dead. The Lord Howe Island stick insect, the heaviest flightless stick insect in the world at about the weight of a AA battery, affectionately dubbed the tree lobster or even the walking sausage, was once so abundant that they were plucked off of branches and used as easy bait for fishermen.
The Lord Howe Islands are truly a unique paradise on Earth. Formed by underwater volcanoes around 6 million years ago, the crescent-shaped 10-kilometer-long island hugs a shallow basin of pristine turquoise water. With mainland Australia 600 kilometers away, it's home to hundreds of unique endemic species, like the Lord Howe woodhen, the Lord Howe Island skink, and the Lord Howe Island marbled gecko. That was until the rats showed up.
In June 1918, a steamship carrying fruits and vegetables ran aground, unleashing a plague of black rats on the island that has permanently thrown the careful balance of the island's ecosystem out of whack. The rats caused the extinction of 5 species of birds and 13 species of invertebrates. The Lord Howe Island stick insect was thought to be one of them. That was until 2001, when scientists were determined to locate them. They hoped that the rats had never colonized the highest peak on the island, Ball's Pyramid, making it a safe haven for these tree lobsters. After a thorough search, they came up with nothing, until on their descent, when they found some oddly large poops.
They came back that night and sure enough, found a colony of 24 tree lobsters. It had been 81 years since the last sighting, and here they were, just hanging out. Since 2001, breeding programs like the one done by the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance have brought this unique bug back from the brink of extinction. The Takahē, a flightless swamp hen native to New Zealand, nicknamed the blue goose, was thought not once, but twice to be extinct.
There were once two species of Takahē, the North Island, which is genuinely extinct, and the South Island Takahē, which is still alive and clucking today, but is endangered. The first time they were declared extinct was in 1850, just 2 years after they were first described by European scientists from skeletal evidence. These birds had existed in Maori oral tradition long before their description by Western scientists, and were called moho or mohoa'u, meaning lonely. But even the Maori people didn't see them again from 1850 until 1894, so they were once more declared extinct by 1898.
In 1948, while on a hunting trip, Dr. Jeffrey Orbell, the Takahē's rediscoverer, heard a strange call like someone making a whistling noise by blowing across an empty .303 cartridge case, and then discovered fresh tracks. He returned to the area and was able to spot the first two live Takahē after half a century of believed extinction. As of 2023, with the help of conservation efforts and hand-rearing and reintroduction, the population of wild Takahē is now over 500 individuals, with the population growing 5 to 8% every year. Danielle, you want to see a Takahē?
Do I ever?
Here's some of those charcoal-flavored little puffs.
Let's travel now to Cuba, where a venomous, bunny-sized true relative that's been long dead everywhere else was discovered in Alexander Humboldt National Park in 1974. The Cuban Solenodon, one of two species, with the Hispaniolan Solenodon living on the nearby island of Hispaniola. The Cuban Solenodon has a long and storied history on Earth, tracing their mammalian line all the way back to the time of the dinosaurs, about 70 million years ago, which gives their dino-sounding name all the more cred.
First described in 1861, researchers lost track of them for almost a century towards the end of the 1800s. So, they were believed to be extinct. But then, in 1974, a few were spotted to everybody's great joy. Since then, until 2016, only 11 individuals had ever been captured. Part of the reason they are so hard to study is that they are not fooled by the traps laid by researchers. Their acute sense of hearing and smell and their aversion to humans make them difficult to catch. Today, despite its status of definitely not extinct, the Cuban Solenodon is still very, very endangered. Human activities like deforestation and the introduction of animals like mongoose, stray dogs, and feral cats continue to threaten their habitat and populations.
You've probably noticed with a lot of these Lazarus species that they exist in isolated habitats on or little populated islands. That's because geographical isolation creates hyper-specialized species with very small viable habitats. One form of geographic isolation is being limited to mountainous areas, like in the case of the Lazarus species, the Peruvian Yellow-tailed Woolly Monkey.
Even though the locals said they were still around, they hadn't been seen by scientists since the 1920s.
The Peruvian Yellow-tailed Woolly Monkey was first described in 1812 by Alexander von Humboldt, based solely on the dense pelts of these monkeys that were used as saddle blankets by Andean horseback riders.
We know now that it lives in an extremely limited area in the cloud forest of eastern Peru. Like most other Lazarus species, it still faces an extreme threat of extinction. Another mountainous Lazarus species is the Wondiwoi Tree-Kangaroo, which is so rare it's been dubbed one of the most poorly known animals in the world. Until 2017, it had been seen exactly once, at the time of its first description by evolutionary biologist Ernst Mayr in the remote mountain region of New Guinea, back in 1928.
Almost 90 years later, an amateur botanist from England named Michael Smith made it his mission to trek into the thick bamboo forest and find this rare tree kangaroo. The vegetation in the area is so thick that most locals never bother to venture that high up in the mountain. Snapping a photo of one of these elusive tree kangaroos proved to be hard since they perch so high in the trees and manage to hide themselves almost completely. It was on the last day of the expedition that they finally saw one, and Smith took the first ever photos of the creature.
Smith said, "All this just goes to show that you can find interesting things if you simply go and look." The general belief that there's nothing more of interest to discover is quite mistaken. That sentiment continues to be proven with Lazarus species still being discovered. At the beginning of this year, 2 species that were thought to be extinct for the last 7,000 years were discovered in New Guinea. Until 2026, we only knew the pygmy long-fingered possum and the ring-tailed glider from fossilized teeth found in the 1990s. After a 2-year-long collab between scientists and locals, the 2 marsupial species were found alive and well. They joined the ranks of the other 350 Lazarus species, like the Fernandina giant tortoise, the Caspian horse, the Bermuda petrel, the terror skink, the crested gecko, the horned marsupial frog, the Chacoan peccary, the large-billed reed warbler, the New Holland mouse, and the Laotian rock rat.
So let this be a reminder to always stop and take a look outside in nature. With so many resurrected creatures found so far, you never know what you'll discover if you look closely enough.
I'd suggest you start at your local desert island. So what should we talk about next? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for new videos every week.
Thank you so much for watching, and thank you, Taylor, for joining us.
See ya!